Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorry I had a computer crash for no particularly good reason. Anyway, when I heard this premise, are men today really less masculine than who came before us? I kind of laughed out loud because it's unimaginable anybody would argue this at all. Masculinity has been on the decline. Perhaps the greatest irony here is that all we have to do is look at our opponents arguing this in the affirmative position. Radical Coder doesn't exactly scream masculinity.
I think I do.
And his partner is possibly one of the only three biological women even willing to do debates at all. I find this topic particularly annoying, as you might as well ask if the sky is blue. But let's get into it. Public schools being geared towards girls, the plummet in sperm count, the plummet in testosterone, the fact men can't even tell women they can't be men, the fact that all male activities that mostly males being geared towards are totally vilified across the board, the fact that TV shows men as bumbling idiots and women as being sensible and logical, which I find humorous. You can tell a bunch of unmarried cat ladies are doing the script writing in Hollywood because women are basically functionally stupid. They deserve their honored place in our society and deserve to be treated with respect, but nobody's ever going to accuse the average woman of being far too logical or too emotionally in control of herself. Masculinity is as much a biological phenomenon as it is an environmental one. There can be some things, I suppose, that are considered girly in some cultures that are considered masculine in others, but by and large, these activities are outliers. Men worldwide essentially all function the same when it comes to masculine interests. Manly isn't really something that's up for much of a debate. You can say things like strength, stoicism, competition, capability. We have exact definitions if you need them. A French man or an Asian man probably aren't going to quibble much about what makes a man manly. I think radical Coper over here will just quibble about definitions for an hour and a half and waste everybody's time instead of actually arguing the point, but maybe he'll surprise me. In my case, I'm ready to defend the definition of masculinity, but just so you know, radical, nobody's confused about what it is. How they want to make this case, I'm actually eager to hear, as the alarm bells on this have been going off for quite some time. I suspect we'll hear a bunch of feminist bullshit about how it's actually masculine to act like a little bitch, or that what masculinity is changing, or blah, blah, blah. But I doubt there'll be any serious arguments that traditional masculinity isn't vilified and that it's declining as an acceptable form of societal behavior.
You got it. We'll kick it over to Rachel as well, who's also on the yes side. Glad to have you back, Rachel. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Jane, for having me back. I love coming here. It's always a good time. So I'm going to kind of just build off of what Andrew said. He mentioned that masculinity, we kind of know what it is, but we do have some APA definitions for you if you'd like. It's usually defined by something like assertiveness, dominance, competitiveness, stoicism, things like that. And you guys may or may not know that I wrote a book about feminism and how it has radically inverted the social order in a very short amount of time. We're talking about 1 century compared to the many thousands of years of human history that came before it, where we went from having a pre-industrial society where physical strength and power was very highly prized and very important and necessary, to post-industrially having feminism and women's liberation kind of invert everything and kind of make us what I would consider more of a matriarchal society at this point. And the evidence I have for that would be things like what Andrew alluded to with schools. Boys do much worse in school than girls do now. They get worse prison sentences. They get worse punishments for just about anything when you're looking at the exact same crimes committed. Women get far more lenient punishments in courts and in school. And I think that's because once we put women in charge of everything over the last 50 years, we've got elementary schools are 80% female teachers. High schools are over 60% female teachers. Good 40% of kids are being raised by single moms now. So most kids go straight from single mom to daycare lady to lady elementary school teacher, so on and so forth. And in all those formative years, boys are punished for almost anything considered traditionally masculine. And they are rewarded for more traditionally feminine behavior, which is why it's like there's a bias against them now in the system to some degree. You can look at things like family courts as well for that. Men are much more likely to be victims of violent crime. They do commit more of the violent crime, but they're also disproportionately much more often the victim of violent crime than women. So, I mean, we look at things like decreasing testosterone, lowering sperm counts, physical strength, things that they've measured like grip strength, sprinting speed, rowing speed. All the world records are far lower than they used to be. So like classical Romans could row much faster than modern humans can. The grip strength just from like the World War II generation to now is like half of what it was or something. So just physical strength in general has declined as well among men. Women are now dominant in a lot of career fields. They're dominant in college education. It's just a very much more gynocentric culture that we live in than what it used to be. So I think you can look at all the biological aspects and see that masculinity has declined. And you can also look at the social impacts and see that masculinity has declined. So I don't know if they're going to argue that that's not the case, and maybe they've got some evidence for that, or if this is going to turn into more of a debate about why masculinity is on the decline and whether that's good. But I guess we'll just take it from there and see how it goes.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Rachel. And want to let you know, folks, we have many juicy debates coming up. In fact, this month it's going to be huge. Alex Stein and Hunter Avallone collide over the famous or infamous, depending on how you see it, AOC event that happened several months ago. You don't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. It's going to be a big one. And with that, thanks so much, Radical Coder and LAV, for being with us. They're taking the no position, of course, folks, namely saying that men are not any less masculine. And Radical Coder is going to get us started. Thanks very much, Ryan. The floor is all yours.
All right. So I'm not necessarily saying that men aren't less masculine. I think we will quibble over some definitions for sure. My take is really that if men are less masculine in particular dimensions of masculinity, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. People will get triggered by phrases like toxic masculinity. It's probably a little bit of irony that we can explore. But obviously there are masculine traits and expectations that do produce toxic environments for men and the people around them, and it's good to reduce those. Patriarchy hurts all of us in different ways and based on our relationship to it. And if you're a woman, that relationship is different than if you're a man. If you're non-binary, that relationship is also different. In terms of positive masculine traits, none of those seem to be exclusive to men, nor do typically feminine coded traits are exclusive to women. And we're probably better off in general having more well-rounded human beings that embody positive traits, whether they've been coded feminine or masculine historically. I don't really care. I want good people all around. On top of that, masculinity has had a long time to be carved out in this very specific way, while explicitly excluding women from positions that were perceived as masculine. I remember hearing, actually I've heard this like several times in the past week in different conversations, where people will say things like, you agree that men are naturally better leaders, right? Which is just a bizarre thing to say, considering like for most of history, like women weren't allowed to be leaders in most societies. So I don't know how you can just assert that had they been allowed, they would be worse ones. I mean, obviously not being allowed in those positions is going to have some impact over a long period of time, similar to how Andrew talks about women not being in debate spheres and stuff. Well, shocking, women get treated like shit in debate spheres. It's anyone who watches any of these debate panels and debate conversations should understand this, or I see it certainly. It's probably not very fun to be a woman in a lot of these spaces, and it's probably pretty alienating. And I don't think that's even necessarily unintentional in a lot of ways. So on top of that, I'm sorry, hang on. And so femininity was kind of shaped by the roles that women were expected to fill, contrasted to the ones that men had dominated and, again, legally excluded women from. And this doesn't just hurt women, that didn't just prevent women from developing those dimensions, but also prevented men from feminine or from embracing traditionally feminine roles and traits, and I think that's also bad. So I think that my opponents are frankly in the unfortunate position where, at the end of the day, even if this isn't really the topic of explicitly the topic of this conversation, what their goal is that quote unquote biological men and quote unquote biological women, they should fill these traditional masculine and traditional feminine roles, and that this is the way that we should push to organize our society, in spite of people who very obviously don't want to conform to these roles and rather thrive in environments where they're not forced into these boxes that they simply don't fit into. And yeah, so that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We'll kick it over to LAV.
So I'm a slacker. I didn't prepare anything, but I do. I agree with most of what obviously Ryan said. Yeah, I didn't know that the debate was if masculinity is on the decline, because I think that all of us can acknowledge to some degree that at least like paleo masculinity, right, like caveman masculinity certainly is. But I don't think that that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a really good thing, especially entering the new like technological age. It's just progressivism, I guess, because, you know, the traditionally feminine roles are what's going to humanize us on this very, you know, strange trip down the rabbit hole when it comes to obviously the world technologically progressing. So yeah, I'm sure that we'll argue about like definitions of masculinity and femininity and that sort of thing. And I'm ready to get into it. But yeah, I agree with everything that Ryan said.
Excellent. We'll jump right into the open conversation. As mentioned, folks, you can ask a question by either A, tagging me with @ModernDayDebate in the live chat, as well as super chatting a question, in which case we read the super chat questions first and then get to the standard questions. Thank you very much, folks. The floor is all yours. Glad to have all of you here.
Yeah, so this is the second time me and my wife have been on Modern Day Debate and won the debate right at the outset of the debate. Both of our opponents both agree with us. They concede that traditional masculinity is on the decline. As per the debate topic, we win. They conceded.
So should we go? I have better things. I have better things to do.
You lost.
So can I say? I think. I mean, fair enough. If we want to leave it at that, but I think that there's just so many more interesting conversations to be had here. Like when we talk about these different aspects of masculinity that Rachel laid out, like strength, assertiveness, dominance, and competition. I don't think any of these are explicit to men. Any of these, and also none of these are like inherently good all the time, and a lot of them manifest in like really bad ways. Like you can be hyper assertive in a way.
Oh yeah, no, I see. So instead of debating whether or not masculinity is on the decline, now we'll pivot and we'll just debate whether or not it being on the decline is good or bad.
Are you scared? Are you scared to
debate that?
Conversation, yeah.
Are you scared to have that conversation?
As long as you guys concede the debate.
I concede that from your perspective, masculinity is on the decline. Absolutely.
Okay, so if we can
masculinity as you know it, masculinity as you know it.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So since both of you have already conceded the entire debate and we already won, whatever you guys would like to launch into, I'm happy to do.
Yeah. So like what I guess like how should we push to remasculize?
Well, I mean, let's just start with
how would you, Andrew and Rachel, how would you describe masculinity?
Well, we already did.
Well, okay, but you didn't give like a list. Like, can we get like
I literally gave a list, but I'll
give
it
like
again.
the assertiveness, dominance, and competition one.
Yeah, that's like 3 or 4 things.
That's what the APA considers it to be. But if you guys want to, I mean, I still feel like this is a bit of an unfair fight for you guys because this is literally like what I do with my life all the time. So if you want to launch into the changes we've seen in society and prove to me that they're good, go for it, because nobody has done that yet.
Well, there's another thing I'd like to bring up real quick. I was taking notes before our epic victory, and one of the things that Coper said was, well, women weren't allowed to be leaders. I want to tell you, Coper, if you have to be allowed to be a leader, you're not a leader. You see how that works? People have to
that's the problem with patriarchy.
Yeah.
People have to allow you
exactly.
to be a leader. You're not a leader. That's how that works.
That's the problem. So you believe that like inherently men should just like lead because what they're bigger?
Well, do you have to be allowed to lead?
Okay, but you think
Do you
So-
do you have to be allowed by a man to lead? Is that what you're saying?
Right now, yeah.
Why?
Okay, so hang on, Andrew.
Because
But,
because our
do you think
everything
that
is
Black people
built.
can't be leaders?
Of course I can.
Well, how come they had to be allowed to be in leadership positions? They weren't allowed to be in those positions before. So,
Well,
US
so
I mean,
so
this is
are
kind of the same argument, right?
were black men always allowed to be leaders in like Africa?
In their own communities?
Yeah.
I'm sure that
Well,
there were.
wait,
Black
Yeah,
men
I'm sure
in
that they were too.
But that's not the argument,
Well,
right?
sure, but
Well,
females
yeah,
have
it is the
definitely been
argument.
leaders.
Hold on.
Females have been leaders throughout history, though.
Yeah.
Like Cleopatra. Like, there's plenty of females that are gynocentric governments or communities where they've been allowed.
No.
But in Western civilization, not necessarily.
Well, so why is it that men need to allow women to be leaders?
Because we've been under male regime
Because
for
you
as long
can't-
as we have.
Because you can't do anything about it?
Well, if you like legally codify something,
Is it?
kind of
Well,
part- you
I
can't-
wanna know.
Andrew,
Is
I
it-
want you to know that if you were born into a situation where you were legally not allowed to do the things that
Mhm.
you've done to like thrive in your life, you probably wouldn't have done those things. Like you might think otherwise. You might think that no, it was so deeply inherent to me that I would have done
Ari's
these things no
Bergen.
matter what
Calm
obstacles were in my way.
Can't help it.
Hey, you're welcome to imagine that world, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I
calm-
think it's just kind of silly.
Yeah, calm down. man.
Before
I know
we
you
go,
took-
before we go into that, just because it's a little bit closer to the topic, I did like that you guys talked about. Is it a bad thing that men are less assertive, less competitive, less dominant? That's something I feel like we should really explore that before we go into whether or not you could say the systematic oppression of women occurred in the
Well,
past.
I want
according-
to. I mean, I really would like to get an answer to this. Women
this is so off-
outnumber.
Okay,
Are
well,
you,
no,
are you
here's-
talking about
here's-
Women
or are you
outnumber
talking
Let me
about
make
men.
it
what are
simple.
you talking
I'll make
about
it
in
really
terms of wanting
simple.
an answer?
Andrew, I'll make it very simple.
Okay, make it. simple.
The inherent difference between the sexes is that one can kill the other with their bare hands, right? So it would make sense that that
That you have to beg to lead.
not beg to lead,
Beg,
but
you have
that,
to beg.
no, but that after like a
Fight.
regime of a male dominated society, that
Mm-hmm.
women now would start to want to equalize.
But
after.
what you're saying is the men, you have to ask the men to make the men step aside so that you can be in charge. Do you understand
well,
what
we
I'm
don't
saying?
necessarily have to ask them. I don't think that
Okay,
anyone.
what would we do if we don't ask them and they don't agree with us and give us the permission to lead everything
Well-
and run everything? Like, what are we going to do about it?
Well, in democracy, that's sort of like how you get anything to change. So like that's like everyone sort of like asks permission in a way, I guess. Like
Well,
that's how
no,
you get things
no.
to move
Everything
on.
It started with
everything
critique.
is
It started with
bad.
early feminist
Yeah,
rights,
wait.
Everything-
This is like a very like I'm
This is
confused
absurd.
on this
Listen,
point.
I'm gonna. I'll explain it to you.
Oh, thank you.
Everything that is political is backed by force. Everything that is law is backed by force. Everything.
Sure. Are you giving? Are
So
you
what-
saying
so
that
let-
are you advocating for
let
women
me-
to take to the
Let me
streets
finish.
and burn?
Stopping shrill immediately. Just give me 10 seconds
Oh,
to make the
God.
point, and then I'll let you respond.
Rachel, you brave woman.
Okay, so where I was at before I was so rudely interrupted was I was expressing that everything that's political is backed by force and everything that is lawful is backed by force, meaning by men. So what she's asking you specifically is if men don't want to give you any authority, what the hell can you do about it? And the answer is
Burn down some buildings, kill
Yeah,
some men, I
nothing.
guess.
yeah, nothing. You can't do anything about it, right?
Well, it seems like something was done about it because for a long time, women weren't allowed to like vote. Women weren't allowed to eat.
That was
eat
nice of
after
you.
Hold on.
eating
All right.
after.
I'm
I
glad
am-
you
Yeah,
brought
I'm
that
sure
up.
you are. I'm
So
sure.
now
yeah,
maybe
know you
I
do.
can-
I know you
Maybe I can
vote.
give you guys a little bitty short history lesson on how that happened.
No, hold on a second. Just before we go completely off topic, is that I do want to hear, is it bad that masculinity is declining? Because this
Yeah.
is totally off topic. So is it
Unequivocally,
good or is it
yes.
bad?
I think-
Where would
I
you
think
guys
it's good
stand?
that masculinity is being redefined and
Yeah.
reimagined, and
It's
I think
catastrophically bad,
it's
and I can
really
prove it.
generally good to
You
critique
can
and
prove
make
it?
sure that you're.
Hold on,
Yes.
okay, just not everybody at the
Wait,
same
really
freaking
quick,
time.
before
All
we
right,
get
no,
back
hold
on
a second.
topic,
Not
and-
everybody at the exact same time so we can actually hear you.
Okay.
Just
Go
that
ahead.
side.
I was just going to say that I think it's generally good to look at society and say, what are the rigid structures and what are good things about them and what are bad things about them and how can we improve them? And I think for a long time, one of those structures was that women were property and women were not allowed to participate in society in a lot of different ways. And if you ask those women, some of them might have been fine with it, but a lot of them were like, no, this kind of sucks ass. Actually, this is like really lame.
That's not correct.
Okay,
so
maybe not.
You all have talked a whole bunch. I haven't talked.
Okay,
that's not true. In my book, I talk about the fact that at the time that they were trying to pass suffrage for women, it took so long. This push for it started in like the 1830s, 1840s. It took almost 100 years because women didn't want it. Only about 4% of women in 1919 wanted anything to do with voting or civil service. Number one, they said we're too busy. In fact, there's pamphlets you can go Google where you can find where the anti-suffrage groups, which far outnumbered the suffrage groups, listed out all the reasons the women themselves thought that this was bad. And they said, we're too busy. We have homes, churches, communities to take care of. We have elderly to take care of, children to take care of. We like planning parties and having a good time and being with our families. We don't want to go to murder trials and hear the grisly details and have to do civil service. We don't want to have to keep up with politics. Politics was then and is now considered something that's kind of gross and yucky and stupid and kind of crude, right? Politics is dirty business. Women didn't want anything to do with that. So no, the whole point is that feminism was never this grassroots groundswell of women who just looked around one day and went, hey, we're being oppressed. This
wasn't a brand new idea, sure.
This sucks. I wanna do military service. I want a corner office and a suit with shoulder pads, and I don't want to spend all day with my children at home. I want to join a corporation and pay taxes, and I want to enlist in the military. And no, women didn't want that then, and they largely do not now, which is why you have such a hard time with your egalitarian dream.
I don't think anyone wants to do that.
Women don't want to enter STEM. Women don't want to run Fortune 500 companies. They don't.
Neither do most men.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. You're right. So like same thing with military. Lots of men are ultra violent. That's a masculine feature. And they literally join the military. And one of the reasons that they'll give as a cause for joining the military is that they wanted to kill people. Not kidding. Yeah, it's not a joke.
Kind of and that is a great thing. Yeah, that's super cool.
Well, it's a great thing.
That's good for society.
I mean, it's a great thing if you want to have your borders defended from foreign nationals who will come in and literally kill you. It's a good thing to have those people, isn't it?
If we do have people like expressing those traits, we should probably try to put them in positions where they're productive with them. Please, can I respond to something Rachel, what Rachel said? No, it's one main thing. Like the problem is if you talk about how all these women didn't want it. Well, a lot of other women did want it, and those ones, yeah. Well, those tiny women opened the door for a lot of other women to realize, hey, that actually seems like a good thing. And then once the cat's out of the bag, good luck putting it back in. I mean, actually, bad luck. I really don't want you. The reason I'm here is I don't want you to be able to do that, right? Anyway, that's.
Okay, so maybe we should do what James suggested and jump over to discussing whether or not this is a good thing. Let's take a look at the last 100 years and see how it's worked out. I just posted a piece to my Substack yesterday called, how's that feminism working out for you? Turns out it fucking sucks. And we have a whole bunch of data that proves it. If you look at things like marriage and divorce rates, children who are being raised in single parent homes below the poverty level, what happens when you move step parents into the house and how the instance of child abuse goes through the roof at that point. The amount of women who can't cope with trying to have a full-time career because they've had it pounded into their head since they were infants, like I did, that you're a fucking loser if you don't have a corporate job and if you're not making your own money and you can't depend on a man for anything. But they also want to have kids. It's a biological drive we have to have children. So now we have to do everything, right? So then it's like, well, now we're unhappy with the man because the man isn't naturally jumping in and doing all the housework stuff, that he's not doing the dishes. He doesn't mop the floor correctly. So everyone gets divorced. 70% of divorces are initiated by the women. Among college educated women, that goes up to 90%. Women hold the vast majority of college debt. So now most women go into their childbearing years with tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And they think, how the hell am I ever going to pay that? I guess I can't afford to have kids. So now the birth rates are dropping. Then you could look at a million other things like rates of alcohol and drug abuse, childhood poverty because of single parenthood. You can look at family courts. Everything is a mess. No one is doing better. We have trans kids, for God's sakes. So the past 100 years, the slippery slope, we have just right down the slippery slope, straight into hell. So please tell me, make the argument for how this is so good for everybody. To switch the gender roles, to invert the social order, to tell men they can be women, women they can be men, everyone's the same. And it's all just a social construct. Please, please defend.
Well, I will say, no one's saying everyone's the same. If you talk to I mean, this is definitely a side note, but if we talk about like the trans stuff, I mean, no one's saying that like cis men are trans men, or that cis women are trans women. In fact, we're saying that those are like two categories that exist, and that it's okay that those two categories exist. That I know you guys don't think it's okay that those two categories exist, but that's.
You have a point. Get to your point, dude.
I'll leave it at the trans thing for now, but
you literally didn't address a single thing.
Okay, fine. So I think that like a lot of the issues that Rachel listed off are going to be issues with like I mean, frankly, with capitalism, like people having to work for money, people having to work to survive it all, like in the way that we do, like in those structures that exist, like people born in situations and the way that they have to deal with that. You talked about like women being the primary seekers of divorce. Like, what's your alternative? They shouldn't be allowed to get divorced. I don't know how that's like a good, how like forcing women to stay in marriages that they fucking don't want to be.
Yeah,
in.
like the 50s, like the 50s where women were just getting like beat by their husbands and like couldn't do anything.
No, stay there because society's going to fall apart if you leave.
That's an absolute trope and a stereotype. You've been watching too much TV. That's not true.
My grandparents grew up in the 50s. They watched their fucking moms get beat. They got beat. Their dads
everyone got beat. So
hold on, just to hear everybody one at a time.
None of the men cared about their wives, their mothers, their daughters. They were all just running around beating the shit out of all the women. You really think that?
No, I didn't say that.
And you don't think that there was exception for divorce because of things like abuse, abandonment, insanity, and addiction?
Sure, but do you think
it wasn't hard to get a divorce prior to no fault divorce for those reasons?
Sure.
What we have now is divorce because Sally doesn't feel sexy and the neighbor makes her feel sexy, so she's gonna dump the kid's dad. Sorry, kids, daddy has to leave because Mr. Johnson next door makes mommy feel sexy. That's what we have now. That's why women get divorced. Not because they're getting beat.
Women are getting divorced to fuck their neighbors, not to.
Yes, they need to go find themselves.
They're not getting divorced because their husbands are sitting there beating the shit out of them. It's ridiculous.
No, that's a tiny minority.
The most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I don't. Did I make that claim that most women get divorced because they're getting beat? I don't remember making that claim.
This is the same stupid, snarky feminist bullshit you always hear where they go back in the 50s, where the men with top hats would go home to their perfect hourglass wives and just beat the holy shit out of them because the pot roast wasn't.
Anyway, I think we're getting. I get it.
I do want to.
We're moving a bit. We're moving a bit. Let's get back on the.
Lav is right. It's something I was just gonna say is theoretically, I don't want to take sides. I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying theoretically, if I was on your side, Radical Coder or Lav, a possible response might be, is it the case that the increases in divorce or the other things that happened, as Rachel mentioned, are actually the result of declining masculinity rather than some other cause?
So I was just about to say, obviously, I think that we all believe in social conditioning, right? Obviously, if you grow up and you don't think that voting is even an option, or you don't worry about it, you're taught to can goods and that you will be a mother. It's just like that's like the idea that you're going to have in your brain, right? It's the same thing. Like Rachel, you just brought up how your family was upset with you, or you were upset with your family for trying to socially condition you into this like feminist society, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that there are certainly reasons. If you can convince all of Jonestown to kill themselves with poison, I think you can convince a generation or generations of women over social conditioning that they shouldn't want to vote, right?
Well,
so I think
them with machine guns.
Sure, but I think that point is a little mute, because I think that there were plenty of women who did want to vote. And to be fair, like Rachel, I'm a tradcon wife at heart. I don't want to fucking work. I don't want to debate. I don't want to do all these things. But I acknowledge that some women do want to do those things. And I think that they should be free to do those things.
Yeah, where are all those women?
It's literally me. And
they are nowhere close to you, Andrew. They are avoiding you.
Well, they're all
frankly, they don't want to talk to you.
It's funny. I think that they're all looking at their cats, and they're very upset.
I have 3 cats, and
I'm sure you do.
And I'm also engaged. So what's your point?
You're right. Your point about social conditioning is correct. And what has happened is we went from one extreme, allegedly. I have a ton of information in my book where I make the argument that life was not that way. All of female history has been rewritten by gender studies professors who portray it that way. That life was this brutish, slavish, horrible existence for women. We were all chained to a stove, made to give birth and bake cookies until we died of hearth death or something. And that's really not true. Women had a lot more agency and arguably more control and power and influence in society than they do now, because they ran everything, like the churches, the schools, the communities. They took care of the elderly. They had like a really strong influence socially. They just weren't in the political sphere, and they weren't as much in the financial sphere. Although a lot of places, a lot of instances, women could own property and have money and inherit things and all that stuff too. So a lot of that's been falsely portrayed. Now we tell women, if you aren't a boss bitch, you ain't shit. And I think that's
exactly. So this brings me to my point, which is that masculinizing women is bad, and keeping masculinity for men also bad. This is my point. My point as a cultural feminist. I don't call myself a radical feminist anymore. I've decidedly become a cultural feminist. I think that feminist values are better for society as a whole, which is why I'm pro soyification for men, right? When we enter this technological age where, things like drones are going to do most of like the military work or things like that, you don't need the brute force masculine energy that we once needed. I think it was great for what it was. I think in the 50s, it was great. I think before we had computers, before we had robots that could do all these things for us, it was incredible. But now we're moving towards
who builds all them drones and robots and weapons? Who does all that?
So now that you're trying to take us on a
women?
Detour again, Andrew, and I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to allow it.
Why? Just say.
So
who does
it? Now that we're moving.
Answer my
question. You asked the question, Andrew. Let's hear it from LAV.
Is she going to answer it?
Well, I'm going to finish what I was saying first.
Yeah, you're not going to answer it.
Now that we're moving towards this technological age, regardless of who made the robots, it's great that like mostly men made these robots, right?
No, it's all men.
Yeah, that's great.
Mostly, maybe.
No, it's pretty much all men.
Incredible. Yeah. Mostly. And also it was only socially acceptable for men to be scientists for the last 100 years, right? While women were at home raising children.
It's not true.
Well,
did you come up with that idea that women weren't allowed to be scientists?
It's not that they weren't allowed to. It's just social conditioning. So when your parents
a lot of women also just weren't allowed to.
Yeah, Rachel, your wife just literally said that social conditioning is like
important. That's true. But unfortunately, we have a ton of data from like Nordic countries where they've been pushing STEM for like 70 years, and we've actually found that
women regress.
Less women wanted to go into STEM.
No, I'm not. Okay, great. I'm not. The debate is not whether or not men have more like logical tinkering brains. I think that is a great aspect of masculinity that is like really dope.
But you say we don't
keep that.
Well, what you're saying
I'm talking about like the brute energy, but like women also can.
Are you ever going to finish?
I guess not, because
like
you won't even let me finish
how long do you
Let's
take?
give LAV another. Maybe
is this
like
what happens?
20...
This is what happens when men see that you have a point. They're like they try to gaslight you and being like, "Are you gonna?" You can. I mean, we don't have to have this discussion. I wanted to have this discussion because I think that there's a bridge that can be made.
Give me the thumbs up when you're done, so that I can respond to it. Because you made a bunch of hypocritical points.
Anymore.
Well, so the first hypocrisy is you said, well, we don't need all this toxic masculinity. It's super.
I never
super
said
evil.
Toxic masculinity.
Okay, whatever. We don't need. We need soy boys, brutish, whatever. Because we have drones and we have robots and we have all these neat things. Mm-hmm. All that were made by men who probably were masculine men. You want to take away the same driving motivation that created the same things you want to replace them with.
Okay, wait. So who's to say? Do you think any of these scientists who are making these? I think most of the I don't know if you've ever met a scientist, but most of them aren't like masculine men.
I don't think you know anything about robotics at all. But that's a field. Yeah, I'm a roboticist.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a roboticist, and let me tell you, that's hard ass physical labor. Okay. Machine maintenance has motor. I've worked on robots.
Your job's going to be taken by
that
a robot
have
soon.
700.
Isn't that crazy?
No, never.
It's not like
you don't know
that.
anything about robots. You have no idea
He's
what you're
the
talking about.
person that builds and repairs the robots, and some of them are the size of a house.
Yeah, listen, huge, massive. You think that this is something that's not physically intense labor? You're insane. You have no idea what you're talking about. Do you know what drone repair is like? Wait,
why are we going off on this detour again?
Because you literally just got done telling me that masculinity should be replaced by robotics and by machines and by all the things that masculine men build.
No. I just think that I'm saying that a rephrasing or a redefinition of masculinity is important when we don't need like a brutish man anymore. A strong man, great. A strong man, great.
Well, what's a brutish man?
You said like someone who wants to kill.
You mean like members of our armed forces and special forces and people that we utilize in order to keep you safe at night?
Sure.
One of them also we don't need them. They want to kill until
we don't need them anymore.
No, it's not that we don't need that anymore. It's just that like it's not becoming a human thing anymore.
So we need brutish men.
Who runs into burning buildings to save people? Who runs into floodwaters and hurricanes and saves people?
Clearly women.
At this point, I mean, men and women do these jobs.
Physically strong men. No, women can't do that.
There are women who are firefighters. What do you mean they can't? They are.
They physically can't.
No, they're not.
What about nurses? What about nurses that save lives every single day? They're not running into burning buildings.
That's beside the point, though. That's beside the point. You don't think there's a need for physically strong, brave people who are willing to, who can just like risk everything?
I didn't say that.
Well, then what is brutish? What is brutish? Just saying that a man has a drive to kill. That's obviously very useful in society. What the hell is wrong with that?
Is that useful? How is that useful in society?
I just gave you. How many times do I have to give you the example of the United States military?
Andrew.
And you say over and over again, yes, we do need them for that. Yes, that's true. We need them for that. So you just keep agreeing with me.
We needed them for that. We, like I just said, there are like drones and cyborgs and androids being created so that we don't need men to do shit like that.
This is the city people thing. This is people that have lived in urban areas their whole life. They have no idea what real life is like outside of a city. They just
lived in Utah.
Yeah. Did you live out in the country where people produce food?
Yes.
Then how do you not know that
I lived on a farm?
We do not have machines that do everything. We still need big ass strong men to do a lot of things in this world.
We needed men to butcher cows, and now we have machines that butcher cows.
Yeah, who puts them?
Guys have to run all that.
So all of this shit that you're saying,
men have to run those.
Yes,
men have to run those.
I'll explain this
to you.
Are
the women gonna stun the cattle so they can be slaughtered? No. Are the women going to be trash men? Are they going to be sewers? Yeah. They're not going to. Women don't want to be trash.
We should open it up so they're allowed to.
I don't think most men want to do that.
Hey, hang on.
You
Rachel,
think women want to find cell phone towers?
Did you know that cows just walk into machines and butcher themselves? I didn't know that. This is
hold on. I do. One thing I want to talk about. Hold on.
Can women work on oil rigs? This is rookie shit, you guys. Can women work on oil rigs?
One thing I want to jump in.
Probably. I can't imagine a woman that wants to.
One sec.
Probably could. They probably do.
You guys.
Yeah, they probably do.
Yeah, they cut the paychecks for the men.
Gosh, you guys just won't stop talking sometimes. So. One thing I do want to talk about, forgive me, I don't mean to, I want you guys to talk, but sometimes while I'm trying to interject, just to say a couple of things. One, folks, we're going to go into the Q&A shortly, so if you have any questions, please do fire them in. As well as, one thing that could be said is, we've talked about physical strength, but at the same time, like, whether or not that equates to masculinity, I don't know if everybody would agree with that, because I think originally masculinity was defined by things more like assertiveness or dominance or stoicism, all of which are, I don't know if they're even correlated at all with physical strength. So maybe maybe that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of women who like embody those traits and like want to live their lives in very assertive and dominant ways, and those women thrive when they have the opportunity to do so. And in the same way, there's a lot of men who would would thrive in more feminine or traditionally feminine roles. And we should open the door so that these people can thrive in the positions that are best for them, so that they can do the things that we need people to do with those skills.
True. And if your point stands that it's some like evolutionary biological basis on men and women wanting to fall into their, assigned roles, then making it okay would not change that, because they would just naturally defer to their roles.
What about the societal damage in the interim time where we try to reach your insane egalitarian utopia where you fucking destroy everything in your path
What does egalitarian mean to you?
In order to make sure that radical Coper over there can act like a ladyboy online?
What does egalitarian mean to you? Because I think egalitarian means to me that we have the same options, but we might have different strengths, right?
Then why are there quotas? Why do we demand that 50% of CEOs be women? Why do we say 50% of senators have to be women when women don't want to do those things?
Well, it seems
Again,
like a lot of
we
women
say
do want to
that?
do those things, right?
Wait,
Yeah, we do say that.
Wait, is that happening right
Yeah.
now?
California has quotas.
Yeah, and of course, and there are more women now who want to be in these roles. And
Sure,
there's
that makes
less
sense
opportunity for
in
them a lot of
places
ways,
like
so-
California.
Sure.
It makes sense in places like California where there are as many women going for those roles. But in a place like Utah, yeah, that wouldn't make sense because I think less women want those things. So
it wouldn't make sense because the Mormons there would tell the women to shut the fuck up and they're not going to do it, right?
Yeah, that's
because they're awesome.
Anyway,
because they're awesome.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
That's,
When you,
that's the toxic
there's a
masculinity
couple of
thing.
things
No,
that-
women, shut the fuck up.
If
Get
I was-
back in your
if-
place. It's bullshit.
if I was living in the 50s and I was married to Andrew, Jesus Christ, Rachel,
listen,
blink twice if you need help.
Don't do that, because don't do that. And here's why. You would not
Protect
have
his
had.
masculinity.
Why do you think, you've come on here and I had a ton of respect for you for talking about the horrors of sex work
Mhm.
and the exploitation of women.
Mhm.
And the reason that all these young girls, beautiful young girls like you, end up on OnlyFans, being sex workers, selling their bodies for money, is because feminism taught them that is good and equality. It's empowering. It's wonderful.
I
Yes,
don't think
I know.
that's true.
I know there are some feminists who aren't in agreement with that, but they're in the minority. And now we have this huge sex industry, huge, because it's empowerment, right? So no, Andrew is not abusive. The 50s were not horrible.
I don't think Andrew's abusive.
Your life could
I
have,
think he's smug and I think he's an asshole.
you probably would have
The 50s were
never
horrible
ended
for a
up
lot of
in a
people.
position of
I agree
being a
with both
sex
those things.
worker. If
Yeah.
you had traditional masculine men, your dad would be there and your dad would say, "Over my dead body. You're not going to be a sex worker, and I will snatch you up and make sure that doesn't happen." Men are protectors.
But if only he had been, maybe
Men-
if
Women
he,
are also protectors.
but maybe if your dad had been a little bit more brutal, he would have made sure you didn't go into that.
It's
line of
not,
work.
but see, that's the wrong way to think of it, because it's like
I think
women
I
that men
watched.
saying no is violence. Women think that men telling them no is violent and that it's abusive. I write about this all the time. To women, a guy saying, "No, you're being hysterical," that's abuse, right? Sometimes women are hysterical. We're filled with estrogen. We have periods. I'm a woman. I have these things where once a month I go a little bit insane for a couple days and I cry over nothing. I cry at a coffee commercial. Andrew comes in and goes, "Babe, just go take a nap. Just take a nap. You'll be fine." And I'm like,
Sure.
and I go take a nap and I'm fine. It's
And what
good
is
to
that?
have-
Well, wait. But what is that? Because that's empathy, which is traditionally a feminine
No,
trait.
really, it's not empathy. It's his logical brain going, "She doesn't normally act like this. I think I know what's going on." And she's going to insist that she's
No,
fine.
that's nurturing and empathy and kindness,
Right.
which are all
And those can involve
feminine
a lot
traits.
of logical, and those can involve a lot of logical processes to like make them.
Well,
effective.
no,
Yes.
I don't know. Is it or can
Also,
I use
on
my?
average, why is it that
Can I
that
use my
women's
1950s voice?
IQs are higher than men's?
Well, I don't know.
women
They
are
sure
log-
seem not to use them.
women's IQ.
Maybe the women you speak
not at the
to.
top of the curve, though. At the top of the IQ curve,
It's men.
mostly men.
Sure.
So the
for
very
now.
best, the very
For
best
now.
are men.
No,
For now.
women have higher verbal IQs on average. Men have more.
They have
technical.
higher
We're
IQs
totally
and
different.
EQs on average.
We are totally different, and what men provide is necessary for
Well,
stabilization
Have you?
of
I'm
society.
confused because have you seen brain scans? Because they're actually far more alike than
Oh
they are
God,
different.
not the brain scans again. Listen, you
No,
you do understand.
Male and female brains are like far more alike than they are different.
You do understand that IQ is also shaped heavily by environmental standards and everything.
Exactly. So when you bring up that men's IQs are higher, it would make sense that those are also
calm down. If it's environmental standards, we brought up that the public schools are tailored specifically towards women and female behavior. Men are not.
It's been that way for so long.
Yeah, men are not. Well, listen, let me ask you a question. Were these curves in the IQ stable 100 years ago where women on average were higher?
I don't think that we can look at IQ measurements from 100 years ago. It wasn't measured the same way at all. Like it was measured by like skull shapes in a lot of cases. Like this, like IQ is come a very long way.
What I'm asking is like when you're tailoring out these things, when you say on average, and then you got to remember that IQ is heavily environmental based, and that the environment that women are in right now is very much tailored towards their comfort, towards them learning, towards them. Okay, inside of school systems, it was not uncommon for men to get into fistfights all the time. Just even when I was younger, if you got into a fistfight, it was a suspension. Now it's an arrestable offense. It has become more and more.
Is that so?
Yeah, it is so. And it's become more and more and more ass kissy towards women. They want the little boys to act like little girls. Fold your hands. Be quiet.
Don't fight each other.
Blah, blah, blah.
Don't fight each other.
Yeah, men
beat
fight
the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
Men-
don't beat
Guys,
each other up.
Again,
fight.
they're proving their ignorance because even psychologists say that for boys, rough play, and even for little girls, rough play is an essential part of learning, and children who don't experience it suffer developmentally. The world isn't supposed to be a padded room where everything is
agree. I can agree with that.
Comfortable.
But like,
So
yeah,
stop advocating for that.
but if
ruining
wait,
people.
no, but if we're going to allow like this rough play and stuff, then what we should do is make sure that it's done safely. Like
Yeah. Let's get them. Let's get them the pads and the yellow. Let's get them a yellow pad.
Because what happens?
Are you advocating for children to beat each other up?
Yes,
basically,
yes.
yeah,
Let them
are,
fight. Let the little bastards
weird.
fight. Let the little bastards fight. Listen, it was very common when I was in school, and it wasn't. By the way, I'm a millennial. It's not like this was fucking eons ago that I was in high school. It was okay. It was expected even that there would be fist fights. Nobody thought that much of it.
It still
if you got caught smacking the shit out of somebody.
I think that fist fights are still happening.
You will get arrested. It is assault. They will press charges. It has become a much bigger deal than what it used to be.
Get arrested, yeah.
And
the school to prison pipeline
is
really disproportionately affects them, yeah.
Little kids often like to fight with each other. They like to kick the holy shit out of each other. And yeah, that's pretty much okay, especially for young men. They do it all the time. There's no problem with that.
It's how they find boundaries. And if you don't let them do that, you end up with school SHOOTERS. That's why you end up with that. Because
I got
because
into
of this weird petri dish where we put boys in schools and even girls, and we're like, you always have to be quiet and kind and soft and squishy. And it's not real life. It's harmful to people. And again,
I think that's also harmful.
Neither of you have addressed any of the massive amount of, I know it was a bit of a gish gallop, but please explain to me how all the broken families are better because we have no fault divorce, which means I don't like you anymore. Somebody else is hotter. I'm just bored. I want to go eat, pray, love. I want to go find myself. I want to go see the world. And so we're going to just break up families. And what you talked about with social conditioning is true. If your mom's divorced, your aunt's divorced, your best friend is divorced, your neighbor's divorced, you get divorced. It's what everyone's doing, right? So it's not important to have stable families for kids to grow up in. It's important for Karen to feel sexy and fulfilled in her life. Fuck that. Excuse my language, but you don't just get to bust up families on a whim. It should take a lot more. It takes way more to break a contract of any other kind in society. But because of the feelings of women, we're just going to make divorce this like virus that spreads through.
I think women who are that stupid should not have kids. I think women.
Well, that's most of them.
What?
That would be most women. really
I don't think most women divorce their husbands because one person makes them feel sexier.
Most kids are even born out of wedlock now. People don't even bother to get married. They just have baby daddies now. You think that's
sure?
I think when you reach a point, I think when women reach a point where they're going to,
for kids.
I think when women reach a point where they are going to divorce for the hot neighbor or whatever, there's so much else going on under that. Like it's not just that. Like you can imagine that that's what's going on. You can accuse all these women of only just wanting to like
it is.
being like
it's
super
a lot going on,
whatever.
But it's because
but,
we
like,
tell
there's
them
more to the story.
It's because we tell them they must have a career and they must also have kids and they should also volunteer at the PTA and we tell women to do everything. Raising children is a full-time job. Yeah, it's not a nights and weekends gig.
I agree.
It's not a nights and weekends thing. So how can you tell all the women they need to go be career women? Who's going to have the babies?
I don't think either of us are advocating for that. But I also think that Ryan would also advocate if a woman, I think that there's masculine and feminine in everything. And I think if a woman wants to be the masculine and wants to work, she should be able to. And if a man wants to stay home and raise the kids, he should be able to.
You think that's optimal?
That once you have them.
I think it can be. I think I've met plenty of men.
Well, everything can be everything, but do you think it's optimal for society to organize itself around men staying at home and women working?
I think a society that allows that option to exist is better than one that doesn't.
I'm just asking. Yeah. I'm asking this specifically.
I think society. Do
you think that society would be more optimal with men working and women staying at home, or women working and men staying?
No, I don't think we should. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the most optimal society.
If you had to choose the two, all else equal.
No, because you're asking.
All else equal.
You're asking an impossible question.
All else equal.
Because I think that I would rather live in a society.
Yeah, I didn't ask you that.
Optimal
two options. You get two
in which
options.
we had agency and free will. That is my value.
So all else equal. One more time. All else equal. If you
don't want to engage with it,
only had these two choices.
You just want to control this
because
narrative.
you avoided my entire.
You're pigeonholing me in a thing that I'm not trying to advocate for.
So you don't think there's a difference.
We're not saying we should swap the gender roles. We're saying we should expand what it means for them.
It doesn't matter if it's the dad at home or the mom at home. It's fine. Everything's fine. No, we don't live in libertarian equal utopia. And if you two
kind of do,
children,
and that you guys are against
neither of you have kids. I have raised 5 children. The man can't nurse the baby. He can't get up in the middle of the night and nurse the baby.
He can, not with his breast.
I had a pump and everything else. It is not the same. It's not the same. And when you have kids, you'll understand how it's not the same. Dad being at home and mom trying to hack it in the career world and support an entire family so dad can stay home. Does it technically work in a tiny minority of cases?
This is the problem.
Yes,
this is the problem.
We shouldn't tell people to do this.
Okay, Ryan had just said this. I don't think that we're advocating for a switch of the gender roles. We're trying to broaden them. So both parents can be nurturers and both parents can work.
But you can't have it all at once. That's not how the world works.
Why can't you?
You guys live in a libertarian utopia where we're all just interchangeable widgets. And I want to address...
No, we live in a liberal democracy where people should be able to make choices that improve their lives and their families' lives.
You're not liberal democracy.
Think they should be allowed to do it.
Can't hear because there's too many people speaking at
once.
We're
not liberal democracy enjoyers. Ryan said he thinks capitalism. He thinks capitalism's the problem.
I think capitalism is a structure that we live under, whether or not you like it or not.
Unluckily for you, I'm in the middle of writing the second book, which is about the experiments we did with feminism in Bolshevik Russia and how.
Are you allowed to write? Are you allowed to write books? Andrew lets you write books. That's like a masculine trait.
It's not. Women have always been authors. Again,
no, but why aren't you at home? Why aren't you at home knitting blankets and clothing for your children?
I am at home homeschooling the kids, cleaning the house, and cooking the meals.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
And you have a job.
Hold on, one at a time.
Listen. Be quiet and listen. The kids are older now. They're between 10 and 21. So now I have entered a phase of life where I do have a little bit of time. And this is what I want to write about. That's fine. Women have always done that. Women have always had a second half of life after motherhood.
But your ambition. Your ambition.
No, it's not ambition.
It is ambition.
I'm putting out information.
I'm not going to do shit like that. I don't have the ambition to do something like that. That is ambition.
I'm a smart person. It's
let's assume for a second.
You come off as very logical. You come off as very self-sufficient. And this is what we're advocating for, is the broadening of things. You can be a mother, you can be a nurturer, and you can also be dominant in your field, dominant in this conversation, assertive, ambitious.
I was going to say, I appreciate your assertiveness in this conversation, frankly.
That does not mean that I have to counter Andrew and try to dominate him. That doesn't mean that I have
we are
to
not advocating
prove
for
I'm-
that.
We don't think
What
people,
are-
we
what-
don't
what
think
are-
couples should dominate each
Say
other.
One
that.
person at a
Like,
time. Hold on.
Help.
Nailing
Steady,
Jello to
steady.
a wall with you guys.
All right,
You
let's hear
haven't
from Ryan.
actually- you
Ryan,
haven't
I
actually
want to hear from
advocated
Ryan.
for
Ryan
anything.
hasn't spoken for a while, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah, I was just saying that like I've appreciated Rachel's assertiveness, dominance, and competitive nature in this debate. I think she strived and proved my point completely that like women should be able to embody these roles. It's fantastic. Thanks, Rachel.
True. She's come off as very logical, where Andrew's just been a
I want
smug
you to be able to vote.
asshole, an emotional smug asshole. Very feminine qualities, Andrew. How tall are you?
I'm sorry?
How tall are you?
Well, I don't know. We don't answer questions here, remember?
Apparently.
That's
Yeah.
also a very gross thing. That would be like him asking you like how big your boobs are, because
I'll
we all
tell
know
him
why you're
if he
asking
wants to
that.
know, but I'm
You're
not sure that
hoping-
you want him
you're
to ask
hoping
me
that
that.
he-
What do you?
Okay, let's move
Yeah.
forward. Let's
Yeah,
go back
no,
to the
no,
topic.
no. Let me answer this directly, okay? But if I do, will you tell me how many men you've slept with?
I will.
Okay, I'm 6 foot tall.
You're
Me too.
lying.
No, I'm not lying. I'm 6 foot tall.
Okay. Prove
Answer? Give me the answer.
Oh, you want to know how many men I've slept with?
Yeah.
6.
I thought you were a prostitute.
No.
No, just the OnlyFans?
Yeah. I slept with 2 people in real life for money.
Ugh.
All right.
I bet those glasses make you see better.